Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Open Minds. You're joining me, Scott Coe. And for anyone who might be new to this particular stream, this is a weekly conversation series where I bring interesting and exciting guests on for the purpose of conversation and dialogue to be able to explore topics. And I'm quite deliberate in this because I feel like sometimes it's good for us as a community to talk through ideas and concepts and to be able to explore that live. And I think there's a lot that can be learned within that, as opposed to other types of educational videos that might be more, here's 5 things you need to do, here's top 3 things, and let us expand from that. Hence the title of this series, Open Minds. So today I am joined by none other than String. Hi, String.
Hey, you know what I should do? I should share this so then I could push it over that way. Hang on a moment. I'm doing something I should have done while he was doing the introduction, and I had that moment where it's I should just share this. This is what a social media person does. We need more eyeballs on here.
Absolutely.
Oh, there you are.
There we go.
Yeah.
But also, I think this is exactly it. Sometimes I just think that sometimes it's really nice to see the sausage being made, because it humanizes this whole experience for everyone. Nothing is absolutely perfect, and we're still learning and playing with this experience as we go along. And so let's come back to you. For anyone who might be watching who doesn't know who you are, can you give us a quick intro to what you do?
I like fried chicken. Whenever you see fried chicken, you always think of me. That's branding. And that's what I do. I help experts, professionals be awesome content creators. Why? Because it's a way to market themselves and increase their visibility on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn are looking for voices, and why not leverage the professionals who want to leverage LinkedIn?
Absolutely, thank you. And you're, as someone who has such a reach on not just LinkedIn, because you're also branching into, and you have been involved in other social media platforms. This is why I really wanted to have you on my show this week, because as I pointed out in some of the preamble to this episode, October is Mental Health Month. Although I'd say that 2020 is probably the year of mental health. And in particular, I thought it would be, this is a good time to talk about, in particular, our relationship with social media. Because let's put it into context. For again, you and I, we've been locked in at home for the past 6 months because of the coronavirus since March. And as a result, we've become even more attached to the types of channels that we can use to reach out to other people, such as social media. We are both creators and consumers. And for anyone who may have seen the recent documentary on Netflix, The Social Dilemma, we can also see how these platforms can have an impact on our mental health as well. And that it would be remiss of us not to sort of say that actually, there is a correlation between something that is so public and how we think as people. So I want to, and I thought, because again, you're someone who's so across this space, it'd be great to explore into this further with you. So let me start by asking a simple question. So what's your relationship like with social media as a creator? How do you connect with it?
Well, I've always been interested in social media since the early days. Instagram, you could probably look at my Instagram account and see the first image that I have was fried chicken. And that was 10 years ago or 7 years ago, right? So I've always been very on brand and always been an early adopter to social media platforms, because I recognize its power to control one's narrative. And for a person like me, I felt like I had a lot of isms against me, being a female, being Asian. I feel like I had to I couldn't walk the path of getting a 9-to-5 job, because I feel like if I had to go up the corporate ladder, I have to do more or prove myself more, and I couldn't handle that. So that's why I escaped the 9-to-5 job and created my own path. And internet and social media has given me that platform to amplify my voice and be myself. And it's the best thing ever, because I got to meet amazing minds, amazing people. So I wasn't limited by Australia and its tall poppy syndrome kind of mindset. And that curiosity was welcome inside social media platforms.
So, would you has your relationship with social media? Have you noticed it having much of an impact on your mental health as a creator and as audience, as a consumer?
Well, like being a creator, that means I can control the narrative and reinforce my positioning as an expert. That's from a professional point of view, but on a social point of view, like the great thing is, like, again, it's been because of like my way of doing things, I attracted people who I never would have connected with, just because like I'm on an influencer or I'm doing things that even experts and other influencers will come to me and ask questions about, just because like I'm always growth hacking stuff. So I've been able to use that professionally, but on a social level, I feel like COVID has brought my family closer because I just regularly talk to them for 5 minutes and just want to see my nephews and nieces. So that's been like my emotional stability, because usually I just see them, just like drive down the street or whatever and just see them, right? So I don't have that emotional stability, but I feel like it's both been a pro and a con, because I feel like everyone is sharing and manifesting their anxiety more on social media, and I'm picking up on that level of anxiety.
Absolutely, and that's something that I really want to tie into a little bit more, because I think for me, when I look at social media, I'm sometimes just so hyper aware that often what we present out, especially if it's through like a medium of like a produced video, for example, it does present our narrative quite clearly, but that type of an interface with the people who are receiving it can sometimes create a bit of a gap, and I think that's where some of that I see some of that pitfall with our relationship with social media coming in. It's whilst we are there, we want to share what we do. Sometimes that can come across differently from people who are watching it. They might read different things into it, and that's where I think some of the challenges is. Is it something that you see as well?
Well, I do have a pet hate for victim mentality as a person and on social media, and people confuse that with vulnerability and blame things, and then it's like, hey, I'm crying, you should feel sorry for me. And then
Can
yeah,
you just define victim mentality and just clarify what exactly you mean by that a little bit more?
I feel like victim mentality is where when things go wrong, instead of like taking account for it, you blame everything else but yourself. Oh, the car's not working. It's because I don't have enough money. Oh, because like, I don't have a job. It's because like, the world is against me and the government's against me. It's like so if anything, instead of like saying, oh, maybe I don't have the right skill sets, what do I need to do to get those skill sets, to get the job? How do I stand out? What do I need to do to stand out? Instead of like they blame the world for the circumstances that they're in right now. And that's what I hate. And because like we have more resources than anything to level up. Like social media is also like a tool and a manifestation, but people, if anything, it's like it's manifesting our mindset.
Well, I think that's a really interesting point, because I mean, when we look at something like the social dilemma, again, that the documentary around the algorithms behind social media, there's two interpretations of that, right? One interpretation is that the technology is like it's feeding us real bits of negativity, like it's reinforcing everything. And I think to a part of it, that is true, right? We do see how the algorithms work on us. But on the other hand, it is also, like you said, it's our relationship to it, where it is when we see things that we don't like, it can be easy to blame other people, And I've certainly had different conversations with other people where, someone might want to put out a positive message, right? But an audience member might interpret that wrong and then criticize the originator of the message, even though the producer might or the creator might say, I just wanted to put out something nice. They can then get flack for something like that.
I don't mind that. Do you mind
Sorry?
though? Do you mind getting flack? I don't mind having open-ended conversation that challenges my thinking.
See, I think if you can engage in the dialogue and you've got the ability to engage in that dialogue, then yes, there is power in that. And I don't mind that. But I think the challenge comes to how we engage via something like social media, right? Because if it's at quite a surface level and if it's at quite a, I'm not going to bother looking into the depth of what is being said, then I think that's where some of the issues arise. But that requires a deeper level of conversation. So, I mean, have you dealt with for example, just pure haters who don't even want to engage with you? Like, how does that have an impact on you, or do you just do you kind of just let it be?
It does bother me. I'm human enough to say, like, I get upset when people don't get my message, or when they disagree, or when they do something that I feel like hurts my ego more than anything else. I'm human enough to admit that, right? But I feel like what it is, it's like it's still a level of communication, because a lot of people sometimes, I know that I trigger people with certain words, and because as a marketer, I want that conversation and that intention. But if they don't read it properly, that means it's their fault. If anything, the people who read my thing actually protects me as well, saying have you read String's post? She's actually talking about this. And that actually engages the conversation, because people are ready to fight but not read properly, or have that's the way social media has trained us, is to look things at the surface level, or our bias.
Whilst String is finding her way back, I think I kind of want to riff on that a little bit as well, and I'll bring String back into the conversation too. It does strike me as the thing that I've always been focused on for the past few months now has been, again, that the relationship, separate to the actual technology itself, it is, I guess, the relationship that we have with technology. Recently, I personally, I am on Facebook. Well, I'm not very often these days, but I recently sort of stuck my neck out a little bit, and because there was a discussion around COVID and the response to COVID, and it did feel difficult to have a meaningful conversation on there, because there was such a balance to strike between what is projected out as a message and how I know that people might receive something like that. And again, this is sort of why I wanted to have a chat to someone like String, because as we are all sort of creators on these platforms, we share these ideas, but it's so easy for people to misinterpret and to not sort of go deeper into that. And that talks to our relationship to the actual platform itself. Like, it's not purely just the algorithms and the technology creating our own sort of echo chamber, so to speak. Like, it has a part to play, because I think we're quite lazy within that, but we do also have responsibility too. Okay,
I changed laptops and gears just because I couldn't handle the other one anymore. Bloody technology. Yeah.
No, it's all good. I covered for you. I was like, oh, okay, String's dropped off. Let me just jump into the things. But what I added basically to what we were just talking about was that for me, I've always been thinking about, again, that relationship that we have with social media, right? Like, the information is there. And yes, the algorithm will give us stuff that we like to hear, but fundamentally, what I can control is my relationship with the information that I see, as opposed to, not being like, oh, you can't say what you can't say, and what you've said has really triggered me, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I think I feel like a level of self-awareness is required, because there's always going to be information that's going to be pretty much target at you as well. They have enough information to know what you like and what you dislike as well. So it's almost like knowing that these like ads are like, or content is hyper target to get your attention and trigger your emotions as well, and manipulate you in a good way and a bad way as well. But it requires a self-awareness, because people are just like are happy to reinforce their biases and live in that bubble.
I think one of my favorite examples of that relationship with social media and just riffing on towards like cancel culture, for example, has been this idea where sometimes on our platforms, we just might put one message out, right? And it's a message that in our minds and in the audience that we're speaking to works. But when someone else comes along and sees it, they might go, well, I really don't like this person's message. But they're not thinking about it from well, maybe they weren't the particular audience for that message. And it's kind of like, when we put up like a poster on the lamppost outside that says free guitar lessons. I want to teach you guitar lessons. And some random person picking up a tab, calling you and going, I hate you for offering guitar lessons. It's like, it's not for you, like you didn't make that effort.
But then using, I feel like such an extreme attitude, they just needed like an outlet for their anger. And so like when people, like when I think about it, it does upset me when people like use me as their anger, but I should not take ownership of that anger. It's just recognizing, is it a critique, or is this someone who's angry, or is this someone who's like really trolling me? And a lot of times like people don't like critiques because it's like going against their thinking, right? But it's not about that. Critiques is critiques to open dialogues and have that. It's important. But when someone outright like projects their anger onto you, that's different.
Do you feel as a consumer now, as an audience of social media, as many of us are, as we scroll through each other's feeds, have you ever felt that looking at other people's feeds makes you feel inadequate, or makes you feel like depressed or challenged or whatever that might be? Like, have you had that particular experience?
You mean like if someone has more numbers than me?
Yeah, or it doesn't have to just be that, but like, how, I mean, the classic example is FOMO, right? Like, and my sister, who's like a good 10 years younger than me, she talked about it a while ago, where she'll look through other people's posts and she'll get that moment of FOMO. And that's, again, Social Dilemma talks a little bit about this, where they make it seem like it's FOMO. Like, have you had that particular experience?
I feel like that's what social media is. Like, it's FOMO. It's saying that it is bullshit, right? Like when I look at someone else's post and they look happier than me, FOMO. When someone has more numbers than me, FOMO. When someone's like able to go and buy a coffee without a mask on, FOMO. It's, that's just human nature to always want to have greener pastures. And that's social media, right? And I just think it's like, that's where like, how do you counter that? Having high self-awareness. But also recognize that you want, when someone is happier than you, it's like, oh, they look so happy, because you want that happiness too. Someone's making more money, and then you feel that resentment or the jealousy or like the FOMO. It's because you want to make more money.
Absolutely. And I think the part that I've become more aware of over time really is this idea of I know what is posted on social media is usually the best version of what is presented. Like we've seen all those articles with influencers, and there's hotels and studios where that's done up to look like a private jet, and it's not, right? It creates that sense of the best. Or even that idea of when usually by default, without even meaning it, when we celebrate something, we're celebrating success. We don't necessarily celebrate mundanity. You know what I mean? Like, we don't take a photo going, nothing happened today. So
because it reminds them of them, and then it does make them feel good.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's not so much it doesn't make them feel good. I just think that it's, in some ways, it's not quote unquote newsworthy. And so we're always sharing stuff that we hope gives inspiration or support to other people as creators, but sometimes what we don't share, or rather I can understand that from an audience perspective, we're seeing the best, what of what everybody else is doing. And so that makes it look like the world's actually a lot neater or tidier or better. Whereas actually there's a lot of just like underneath the stuff, that we just usually don't see, but it is 100% there.
For sure, 100% there. And even Beyonce goes through depression. Even Beyonce goes through pain. Even Beyonce poops and go to the toilet, right? Sorry if I ruined your.
I'm going to snip that part and repost that. Hey, even Beyonce poops.
But she does, right? And like, when I meet someone like super famous, they don't want, like, oh, you're super famous. They know they're super famous technically. It's just like, how do you mean to build up a rapport with them? Because fundamentally, every person wants to build up a connection with a person that they respect and like and dislike too, right? So that's what I think. But yeah, instead of that's how I see social media. Like maybe I see both this dark side and the beautiful side of it, but I see what social media does, and maybe I'm just more hyper aware about it and pragmatic about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So do you think then, well, let me take one small step back from that then. How did you cultivate your self-awareness around it? So what were there any practice that you put in place, or was it just something that you became aware of because you're also a creator? Like I can understand as a consumer, never having created, it's like, wow, everything seems so shiny. But as a creator, you kind of get to look behind the scenes and be like, oh, there's mess everywhere.
Yeah.
So how did you cultivate the self-awareness around that?
By experiencing a lot of shit. That's probably the most practical way of doing it, right? You won't learn anything or understand empathy or understand someone's shoe unless you walked in that shoe. And the fastest way to have self-awareness is seeing it from someone's point of view. And that's selfless. And fundamentally humans are selfish. So it's how do you become more selfish and more selfless? And it's only through gaining new experiences that are outside your own culture, outside your own homogeny. Is that the word? Outside your own school framework, outside your own bubble, experiencing new cultures. Not because you eating new food is not experiencing culture. Eating different cultures' food is not experiencing culture. It's a taste of the culture, but fundamentally, it's what can you do to fail more, but not see it as a failure, but as just experiences of being a better person.
Which links me back to what you do, as the trusted voice and getting people to create more content. I think there's two sides to that, right? There's on the one hand, yes, getting people to create more content because it's about building their voices and stuff. But on the other hand, I actually think there's something powerful about just saying to people, well, actually a good way to see what it's like to raise your self-awareness of, if there are people who are struggling with mental health, for example, or struggling with their relationship with social media, become a creator, not for the clicks or the likes, but for the experience of what it might mean to create something. And then I think once that happens, you start to peel back some of the layers and be like, oh, now I understand. Now I understand what's involved here. Now I understand what's involved there. I can have perhaps a slightly healthier relationship.
Well, that's how probably I started. I didn't do it for anyone else but myself. And so if you have that kind of thinking, it's I'm just learning how to communicate better. But ironically, it is about how to communicate with your own thinking here, because we don't have enough. Because with social media, what happens is a distraction, right? And I even days there where I feel I don't want to talk to social media, but when you use social media to hide away from what's happening in here and in here. So taking it away and communicating it. And if you're on social media, it has a two-pronged effect, right? You're communicating and articulating what's inside of here and here. But a lot of people are scared of sharing here.
Absolutely.
Fear to critique. But if you do it for yourself, it doesn't really matter what the other person says.
Yeah, and I think I want to almost wrap on that part of it, which is you're right. And this goes to that two parties. I think links it back to the victim mentality you spoke about before as well, where it is a little bit of that idea where as the audience of other people's messages, it's not, if I don't like a message, it's not necessarily to do with the person who created it. That could just be my own relationship with that bit of information. And that sometimes is hard to reconcile. And I think in order for us to go to start to look towards a healthier relationship towards social media, I wonder if part of it is really just that recognition. It's like, hey, here's really just a voice saying something at a particular point in time, and that's all there really is to it. I can choose how to react to something like that, and it doesn't have to be like that they're pushing something onto me. It's all suggestions basically. So yeah.
I feel like intent is like really, I know when someone has good intent or bad intent. That's like, and social media is like that too. Is like, are they adding value, or they have an agenda to project their own biases and thinking on the world? So, it's both worlds. Like even amplifying your voice, you're amplifying your thinking and your intent to the world as well. And on the other side, like how people consume it is like they could choose to agree, disagree, not engage. But it's always about that relationship of communication and that message.
Absolutely. So finally, have you done anything to change your relationship with social media, especially during this lockdown period? Have you done anything that's a little bit different to try and maintain a healthy relationship?
Well, like when I meet with a person, like, how you have lunch meetings and meetings, we have a habit of just being on our phone. So what I try to do is not be on my phone. Like I put it out of mind sight and just focus on the person in front of me, because that's like the biggest respect that you could give, like attention and time.
Absolutely. I think for me it's the same thing as well. Like I have been a lot less on social media yes I'm on LinkedIn, but like I said, it's part of the reason why I started something like this is because I'm like, you know what, I feel like this is for me what allows a healthy relationship. That I shifted from feeling like I had to be compelled to create content or anything like that to going, what's something I really actually want to do, irrespective of if nobody watches or if nobody, wants to engage. This is something that I find is the type of thing that I want to share. And that's what I kind of lean into, because I'm aware of the systems and structures of social media. And so hopefully what that means is that it allows other people to kind of engage as well from a different perspective too.
Yeah, I hope like other people watch this as well, because I could see like a lot of people having more bad habits with social media, and all they want is the sugar hits, the dopamine hits. But it's like those like kind of like when really we should probably have a more sustainable relationship in terms of serotonin, or just realize that, like getting views is like not a good relationship to have, or getting those candy hits.
Exactly it. Well, with that, thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the opportunity to have this. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
On LinkedIn for sure. Like if you just write string Nguyen, you connect with me or follow me. And the Trusted Voice is here to help people amplify their voice and their values online in a sustainable way. So I really appreciate this conversation that we're having, Scott.
No, likewise. And I would like to give, similarly, I'd like to endorse that shout out as well, because I think, just even from this discussion, for me, that little new facet of thinking of saying actually a good way to overcome, like for anyone who might have a negative relationship with social media, one good way of potentially overcoming that is to dip your toes into being a creator, not for views, not for likes, but for the experience of it. And if we see it from a point of view of curiosity, then that might help a little bit. And again, it kind of demystifies some of the social media world, so to speak. So yeah, for anyone else, definitely please check out the Trusted Voice. But with that, Thank you so much to everyone who was watching, whether it's live on stream or whether it's later on. If you like this conversation, please do follow myself at @thescottco on LinkedIn. Currently, I've been running these series every Thursday, 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And if you'd like to come on and talk about some topics as well and explore ideas in particular, then please drop me a message, and I'd love to have you as a guest on the show. With that said, take care. All the best. Ciao.